500,000 landlords. That's how many are planning to sell up and leave the UK rental market within the next 2 years. Not a typo. Not speculation. That's over 500,000 individuals pulling out of a sector that once propped up middle-class wealth, first-time investment, and regional rental stability. It's not a dip, it's a mass exodus. If that number doesn't hit hard enough, here's the scale. 2.4 million rental units could vanish from the market. That's enough homes to house the entire population of Scotland. Gone. Pulled from the rental pool and sold off often to whoever.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Can pay the fastest, not necessarily the fairest. This isn't some isolated crisis in London's buy-to-let hotspots or a problem for the odd landlord with bad tenants. This is a nationwide structural unraveling, and it's moving fast. So what's driving it? First, the economics just don't work anymore. Since the introduction of Section 24 tax reforms, landlords can no longer deduct mortgage interest from their taxable income. That one change alone flipped once profitable portfolios into loss-making liabilities. Add on compliance costs, licensing, EPC upgrades, gas and electrical safety checks, smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detectors. The average compliance cost: over £13,000 per property, per year. It's death by 1,000 regulations. And the message is loud and clear. Unless you're a large-scale operator with deep pockets and management infrastructure, you're not welcome here. And that's exactly what's happening. Small, independent landlords are leaving, and they're being replaced not by other individuals, but by institutions. The corporate takeover is well underway. Pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, private equity giants, companies like Blackstone and Legal & General are hoovering up properties by the thousands, often in cash. With scale, with teams, with tech, they don't blink at regulations. They run property like a numbers game. No emotion, no attachment, just efficiency. And this shift, it's not subtle. It's creating a two-tier rental system across the UK. On one side, you've got the remnants of local ownership landlords who knew their tenants, who managed repairs personally, who maybe owned a property or two. On the other, you've got sprawling corporate machines setting automated rent increases, filtering tenants with algorithms, and outsourcing management to call centers. In major cities like London and Manchester, the impact is already brutal. Rents are exploding, bidding wars are common, and renters are left with fewer options and fewer rights. It's no coincidence that the average London tenant now needs an income of £80,000 just to afford a basic flat. That's not sustainable. That's not normal. And it's definitely not equitable. Meanwhile, rural areas and post-industrial towns are being hollowed out. Landlords are leaving, but corporate buyers aren't coming in. Why would they? There's less profit to be made in small towns where rent yields are low and economic activity is limited. The result? Entire communities are losing their rental stock overnight. Properties are being sold off. In some places, the rental market is collapsing altogether. This isn't just about homes. It's about social mobility, community stability, and access to opportunity. When rental housing disappears from rural towns, people are forced to leave. Jobs become inaccessible. Local economies decline. Schools close. The societal fabric starts to unravel. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The government isn't trying to stop it. In fact, many believe it's the plan. By removing tax reliefs and hiking compliance costs, policymakers are pushing out small landlords and cashing in. Every forced sale means capital gains tax, stamp duty, transaction revenue. Billions are being collected from landlords who are being squeezed out. At the same time, government officials have publicly courted institutional investors, painting them as a long-term solution to the housing crisis. But the solution is starting to look like consolidation. And consolidation means power. It means fewer owners controlling more homes. It means less choice, less diversity, more standardization, more control in fewer hands. The technology gap only accelerates this divide. Institutional landlords now use AI, big data, and automation to manage entire portfolios with a fraction of the staff. They can track rent trends in real time, automate maintenance, screen tenants instantly. That's something no individual landlord can compete with, not without access to the same scale and resources. And this tech isn't neutral. It's designed to maximize profit. That means stricter tenant screening, more rigid rent policies, and reduced flexibility. Corporate landlords aren't forgiving if you're late on rent. They don't negotiate extensions. They don't consider your personal circumstances. If the system flags a risk, you're out. Meanwhile, overseas investors, sovereign funds from the Middle East, conglomerates from China are treating British housing as a safe asset class. They're buying in bulk, holding long-term, and squeezing profits from a market the average UK citizen is being priced out of. And it's not slowing down, because there's a cliff edge coming. May 2026. That's when even stricter energy and property standards will kick in. For older homes, especially Victorian and early 20th century properties, compliance will be borderline impossible without major renovation, tens of thousands in retrofitting costs. Many landlords simply can't afford it. That's the final push. Experts are already calling it the biggest property sell-off in British history. We're not just heading toward a crisis. We're in one. It's just happening quietly, slowly, one landlord at a time, one rural town at a time, one eviction at a time. And the system, it's being rewritten in real time. Agencies that used to focus on lettings are pivoting to sales. Landlords are accepting below-market offers to get out quickly. Auction houses are overflowing with portfolios being dumped en masse. Tenants are being served Section 21 notices, no-fault evictions as landlords exit, knowing that future laws may ban those tools entirely. By 2027, the entire housing structure in the UK could look unrecognizable. We'll see fewer homeowners, more renters, but those renters will be beholden to fewer landlords who operate with corporate policies, not community principles. Renters will have less power, less choice, and less ability to push back. Social inequality will deepen. Homeownership will become a luxury, not a goal. And control over housing, the most basic human need, will shift from citizens to corporations. So if you're wondering what comes next, it's this: a fully corporate rental market. One where affordability is algorithmic, rights are standardized, and community ties are replaced by shareholder interests. If you felt the change, whether as a landlord, a tenant, or someone trying to get on the ladder, drop a comment. Is this shift helping or hurting your situation? And if you want more unfiltered breakdowns of how policy, profit, and power are reshaping the way we live, like the video, subscribe, and share it. Because the ground is shifting under the UK housing market, and no one gets to say they weren't warned. The signs have been there for years, but now, they're impossible to ignore. What used to be a fragmented landscape of local landlords managing one or two properties is quickly being wiped out. The tools they relied on, tax relief, manageable compliance, some flexibility in how they operated, are all gone. And in their place, a new model of housing that looks less like a neighborhood and more like a portfolio. This isn't a theoretical future. It's already happening. In places like Birmingham, Leeds, Brighton, and even outer boroughs of London, property listings that once read landlord-managed flat, pets welcome have turned into corporate templates. No pets, automated rent collection, no negotiation. It's all systemized, cold, unbending, and tenants feel it. Gone are the days of texting your landlord about a dripping tap or asking for a few extra days to pay rent. Now, you're talking to a dashboard, a chatbot, or a call center that operates Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, in a different time zone. You're not a neighbor. You're a line on a spreadsheet. What's worse is that the rent keeps going up while tenant power shrinks. London renters are already being hit with hikes of £300 to £500 a month. Even outside the capital, it's not uncommon to see £150 to £100 jumps annually. And why wouldn't corporate landlords raise rents? They have the data. They know exactly what the ceiling is in every postcode, every zip, every block. If they know someone will pay more, they'll charge more. This isn't just about profit, it's about predictability. And in this new model, you are the variable being controlled. Some tenants are being pushed to the brink. Bidding wars are no longer limited to buying. Now, renters are offering to pay above the listed rate just to secure a place. Applicants with pets, children, benefits, or less than perfect credit, they're locked out entirely. The screening systems favor the highest earner, the cleanest application, the tenant least likely to push back. And all the while, local councils are struggling to keep up. Affordable housing stock is dwindling. Social housing lists are overflowing. Emergency accommodation budgets are being stretched to breaking. Councils are being forced to house people in temporary units, hotels, or far outside their communities. Meanwhile, corporate landlords aren't filling that gap. They're not investing in affordable homes. They're targeting high-yield areas, central locations, university towns, commuter zones, wherever there's guaranteed income and little resistance. And still, the government insists this is fine. Policy continues to make things harder for small landlords while offering nothing to level the playing field. There's no meaningful support to help landlords retrofit homes for energy efficiency. No tax incentives to stay in the market. No protection from being undercut by giant investment firms buying in cash. It's not just passive neglect, it's facilitation. Because this shift isn't just benefiting corporations, it benefits the state. Every sale from a private landlord to a corporate buyer generates taxes, capital gains, stamp duty, corporation tax on profits. The Treasury is making money on every transaction, especially as landlords rush to sell before the 2026 regulation deadline. So what happens next? By 2026, it's expected that thousands more landlords will exit. The compliance requirements alone, especially the EPC upgrades, will be the final straw. And for properties that don't meet those standards, they're either sold off at a discount or abandoned entirely by landlords who can't afford the work. Property auctions are already reflecting this. Listings have exploded. Portfolios are being broken up, slashed in price, sold as is. It's a fire sale. And corporate buyers are lining up, checkbooks ready. Let's not sugarcoat it. By 2027, the UK housing market will be unrecognizable. There will be fewer owner-occupiers, fewer small landlords, more renters, more corporate landlords. Rents will be higher. Rights will be standardized, not personal. And your landlord, likely not a person at all but a brand. And this concentration of ownership isn't just a housing issue, it's a power shift. Because when a handful of corporations control the majority of homes, they also influence legislation, rental standards, and even government policy. Lobbying becomes easier. Regulation becomes harder to pass. And ordinary people, they get boxed out. Homeownership was once the British dream. Now it's starting to look like an illusion. Young people are being forced into decade-long renting cycles. The deposit for a home has become unachievable for many, especially in urban centers. And even when they can buy, the homes left on the market are often ex-rental stock, overused, under-maintained, or priced far above actual value. Meanwhile, corporate investors are playing the long game. They don't care about market dips or temporary downturns. They're holding for 20 years, 30, longer. They know property always recovers. And with enough supply under their control, they become the market. That's the danger. When the few control the many, when tenants have no alternative, and when the housing system is geared toward extraction rather than stability, social cohesion fractures. We're already seeing the signs. Tenants feeling powerless, communities hollowing out, economic divides deepening. The question is no longer is the system broken, it's who benefits from keeping it that way. Some say resistance is still possible, that people can band together, organize, fight for rent caps, demand housing reform, and maybe they can. But the clock is ticking. Because the moment this transformation becomes fully entrenched, reversing it becomes nearly impossible. Once ownership is consolidated, once renting is systematized, once tenant rights are rewritten to fit into corporate frameworks, it's no longer a market. It's an infrastructure. And infrastructure doesn't bend easily. The worst part, most people won't realize what's happening until it's already too late. Right now, the exodus of 500,000 landlords is unfolding quietly. No headlines screaming collapse. No breaking news coverage. Just to-let signs disappearing. Viewings cancelled. Tenants receiving short notice eviction letters as properties go on the market. Agencies shifting resources from lettings to sales. Slowly, methodically, the old rental market is being dismantled, and in its place, a corporate structure is taking root. By the time the average tenant realizes their landlord has sold, the new reality is already in place. No more casual negotiations over rent. No more flexibility on pets, repairs, or short-term agreements. Instead, it's standardized tenancy contracts, automated rent increases, and 5-page PDFs explaining the complaint escalation process to a call center you'll never speak to twice. And it's not just tenants who are being caught off guard. Many of the landlords selling now didn't get into the business as tycoons. They weren't trying to become slumlords or property moguls. For a lot of them, this was their pension plan, their side income, their way to provide housing, build a little wealth, and offer stability to people looking for a place to live. Now, they're being pushed out by a system that's no longer made for them. Compliance costs have gone from manageable to overwhelming. Mortgage interest relief has vanished. Maintenance standards have tightened. New regulations are coming in faster than they can be implemented. What once felt like a smart, safe investment now feels like a trap, and many are cutting their losses before the market locks them in further. But as they leave, the gap isn't being filled by other locals or aspiring landlords or first-time buyers. It's being swallowed by corporate landlords who can operate at a scale individual investors simply can't match. They're not just buying one flat. They're buying 40, 200, entire blocks, in some cases, entire neighborhoods. And with that scale comes control over prices, over availability, over terms. This isn't a housing market anymore. It's a takeover. And the people left trying to survive in it, they're stuck between two brutal realities: either rent a high-cost, tightly controlled corporate unit, or move further and further away from work, family, and opportunity into areas where housing might be cheaper, but where services, jobs, and infrastructure are disappearing just as fast. The rural rental market is already collapsing. In towns that once had healthy buy-to-let ecosystems, landlords are leaving en masse. No one's replacing them. Not private landlords, not housing associations, not corporate investors. There's simply no profit in low-demand areas. So homes are either sold to owner-occupiers if they're lucky or left empty. The result? Rental deserts, entire regions where it becomes almost impossible to find a place to live unless you can buy. And in a country where homeownership is increasingly out of reach, that's a dangerous scenario. It pushes people into economic exile, forces young workers to abandon their hometowns, breaks apart extended families, slams the door shut on anyone hoping to stay close to aging parents, childhood schools, or familiar communities. It's not just a housing problem. It's a societal one. And it's being engineered, slowly, deliberately, through policy choices that favor scale over stability, efficiency over humanity, and revenue over rights. The current trajectory leads to a single outcome: control of housing moves into the hands of the few, while the many are left scrambling for whatever's left. And yet, this isn't being treated as a crisis. There are no emergency debates, no national campaigns, no coordinated plan to protect local ownership or regulate institutional control. In fact, many of the policies introduced over the last decade have actively accelerated this transformation by design or by negligence. The May 2026 deadline looms like a guillotine, and when it drops, thousands more landlords will exit. Older properties that can't meet new efficiency standards will flood the market, and once again, those with deep pockets and no time limits will swoop in and buy cheap. That's the game now. Let others build the housing. Let individuals bear the risk. Then step in when it collapses, consolidate the remains, and repackage the result as a modern, professionalist rental sector. And it's being sold as a good thing. If you've seen these changes happening around you, drop a comment and share your story. Whether you're a landlord preparing to leave or a renter trying to survive, we want to hear what's happening in your city, your town, your block. Like this video if this breakdown helped you understand the deeper shifts behind the headlines. Subscribe if you want to keep following this unraveling in real time, because between now and 2027, everything about the UK housing market is going to change, whether we're ready or not.